Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Guerra, as you guys know, and I have the pleasure of being here with Victor Garcia. He's the SVP Managing Director at Publicis Group. And today I'm going to be interviewing him and asking him a couple questions just so he can give us some advice about what it's like working for an ad agency, how you can move up in an ad agency, and kind of like what it's like getting a master's and how it can help you in your career. So, you guys know who I am. So, I'll start off by asking you, Victor to introduce yourself, kind of give me a little bit of a background who you are, where you come from, and maybe a fun fact about you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Victor Garcia. I'm the SVP Managing Director for the regional hub here for Publicis Group. I've been with Publicis Group for the last 15 years. The bulk of my career. I've been in advertising for the last 20 years. Most of my career has been focused 100% on media. I'm a Miami native. I was born and raised here, so surprise, surprise. And my family's Cuban, not very exotic in this market. Surprise, surprise. and Fun fact about me, I hate those questions. I hate
Yeah.
those fun fact questions because I'm not that fun of a person. So when you ask me to say a fun fact about me, it's very difficult. But I have a dog, and a fun fact I was just talking about is I bought a pair of fish to keep me company during the pandemic and to lighten up my background.
Well, definitely an interesting background for sure. I almost thought it was one of those backgrounds that you buy off of Amazon or something, but totally, totally cool background. I love that. So, Victor, I mean, you got your master's in the science of marketing. I am in the same program. So, tell us a little bit about what your experience was like in the program, what you've learned from it, and how it's kind of helped you kind of mold you for the next step in your career.
Sure. So, I mean, the reason I joined the program is I had spent many years in advertising. So I didn't go into the program to think that I was going to learn, a huge wealth of information,
Mhm.
just because, I knew that the program was more built around, marketing as a whole, not necessarily, for senior executives or people who had years of experience. So my goal of getting into the program was for a couple of reasons. First, I wanted to get a better understanding of what an education in business or marketing looked like. My background and my academic background was in psychology, which had
Mhm.
nothing to do with advertising. So I was interested to know what that experience would be like. And secondly, I think it would be interesting to see the theory and the academic application of a lot of the marketing things that I use today in my functions.
Right.
The program itself, I think there were a lot of courses that I truly enjoyed tremendously. There was a lot of content which I hated. There was a lot of tedious work which I hated, and there was a lot of tedious work which I loved. Me personally, being somebody who's more of an introvert at times, the personal branding stuff, which at the time I hated, I think was a great engine for me to be a little more comfortable speaking about myself or speaking about my qualifications or my desires or having an opinion in a much more public forum. That was something that typically I haven't been as comfortable with.
Right.
And so for me, that was a big advantage in the program.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you for that. I mean, definitely, I hope I get the same experience for sure. And so tell me, walk me through how this has maybe helped you and what your career, the trajectory of your career has taken since graduating in 2019.
So, professionally, I knew at the time I did this program, I wasn't going to ascend me professionally. I didn't do this program to look for a lot of people do programs for either career change,
Mm.
changing industries or changing, or having an ascension at work, at their workplace or their current employer. That wasn't my goal at all. I walked into this knowing that, in my position and in the at Publicis at the where I am today, if I show up with a master's degree, my boss will just maybe send me a balloon and tell me congratulations. She wasn't going to give me a raise. She wasn't going to, promote me, and that was fine. I knew that walking into it, just because as you build more experience, the
Right.
experience, brings a lot of value. But that was never the intention. What I did like about the program is a few things. It broadened my perspective on topics which I hate, topics like research, for example, which I took it in at the given value. So now I put a little more appreciation behind it. I still don't want to do research. I don't want to be a researcher, but it gives you a different perspective. I think the getting into some of the certifications that I wouldn't have done, like a HubSpot or I don't even know if you do those today, but we did a lot of certifications that were more about CRM.
Mhm.
To me, that was great because it kind of opened my experience into more of a CRM mentality.
Right.
Which, funny enough, when I was in the program, it wasn't a big deal, but today with the whole new privacy issues with iOS 14 coming out, with tracking issues, with the cookieless world that we're going to face in 2022 with the blocking of cookies from Chrome, what you're going to find is that CRM is going to become critically important for all advertisers. So having that background and having that experience with more of a CRM through the lens of CRM is something that at the time, honestly, I saw it as didn't really put value behind it, but
Right.
today I'm putting a lot more value behind the trailhead stuff I did, all the CRM certifications that they forced us to do. So that to me was a very positive application of what I learned in the program.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely the CRM. We're still doing all of that. HubSpot, Salesforce.
Nice.
Those are some of the things that I personally have found a lot of value in. I have experience in CRM and Salesforce, and HubSpot as well, but there were definitely some hard skills that I learned in this program that I completely agree with you are going to take me to the next level, like in my career, and it's probably going to take a lot more people into the next level in their career as well, depending obviously on what your experience is. Um, so, given your experience, I mean, you have so much experience. I mean, you're so knowledgeable in the industry, and now with your degree, you've learned so much more, like you said. So, what advice can you give to someone who's kind of entry level, like I am, who's looking to learn more, not so much in just advertising and the agency world, but in general in a marketing position?
Well, I would tell you, I'll give you a few tips that I applied to my professional trajectory. And I don't know if these are good for you. I'm not going to lie. These worked for me. I'm no way a career coach or counselor. So I'm going to give you my perspective. But again, I think everybody has their own journey and their own path. And I think you should be very have self awareness on that. But what worked for me, I do think a few things. First, learning is a never ending process. I'm glad you're doing, you've done this master's. It's great to continue to, achieve resources to educate yourself. However, learning doesn't only happen in the classroom. Learning doesn't only happen in a program. Learning happens by what you read every day, by what you do every day, by the way you inform yourself on every decision you make. Every time you make a decision, if you question your assumptions and you learn a little bit more, that is part of the learning process. And it's very important as you become professionals, as you grow professionally, that you check your assumptions constantly. Don't think what you learned, even what you learned in the program today. What you're learning in your program today will be obsolete. 50% of that will be obsolete 5 years from now. I promise you.
For sure.
And it's not to take away value from it. It's a good core fundamental because it's going to help you learn the next iteration. But it's very important. What I would tell to you is if you're a young professional going into marketing, the rate of change is so fast that education is a constant. Always learn. Additionally, always have passion for a certain area. You do not have to be the expert in everything. Sometimes we walk into the idea that we want to be expert. We want to be experts in everything. We want to be experts in CRM. We want to be experts in research. We want to be experts in media trading. We want to be experts in strategy. We can't. We can't be the do all be all. Yes, there's some people that have a lot of talent. I'm not saying we can't do it all, but focus on where you want to develop your skills in your career. Do you want to be a strategic planner? Then work towards that angle. Do you want to work in research? Then work towards that angle. To get there might mean longer hours, might mean lower pay, might mean a slower career path, might mean a different organization that you're with today.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it is that's the trading and the evaluation that you have to make as a professional. What do you want to do in order to get to your next step? Having a focus is critical. Having a focus on what you want to learn is also critical.
Mhm.
And with that, even though and this might sound contradictory, but hear me out before you make a judgment. Having a focus does not mean you're not flexible. You've got to be flexible.
Yeah.
No journey is linear. People don't make straight lines. Like, I mean, no, none of us, nobody walks on a straight line. Eventually, you're going to hit a wall. You're going to hit a tree. You're going to hit a lake. You're going to hit a pond. You've always got to be ready to to pivot to the right, pivot to the left, to make adjustments to your path, because life happens. Life happens. Families, health, pandemics. We all went through one last year. Things in life, things that are out of your control happen.
Mhm.
And the people who are most successful are those who could pivot the quickest to continue their journey, are those who could recover the quickest. It's not the smartest, it's not the hardest working, because those two are very good qualities, but it's those who could pivot the quickest to continue on the journey and to continue to have productive output. Those are the ones that are going to, I think, ultimately reach the finish line faster than those that are going to wait in front of the lake for it to dry out, for global warming to take it, or waiting for the building of a bridge, or waiting for the tree to fall, or get an axe and cut the tree down. No, pivot. Always remember that. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not. It's not the pretty path. Sometimes it requires nastiness. Bad experiences, but always have that ultimate goal in mind, um, and have that flexibility be part of your focus. I don't know if that helps in any way, but
Well, let me tell you that you should write a book with the amount
oh,
of
thank you.
inspiration that you've given me. I mean, honestly, it was very beautifully put. And you've actually answered most of my questions with that one snippet. So I love your advice, and I'm gonna take it personally, because definitely some of the things that you said are some of the things that I find myself doing as well. So, like you said, it's a learning curve, and it's all about just ensuring that you pivot, you adapt, and that's all about what a career in marketing is like. And that's what I
Mhm.
found in the past, 5 years that I've been doing this so far. So, definitely gonna take that, and I hope that the audience can also take that advice as well and take it with a grain of salt. And now transitioning to a little bit more on the agency side of things. So, I mean, you said it yourself, you have 20 years of experience working in an agency. So, can you tell us a little bit about what that was like, and maybe some of like your key learnings as you've grown in your career?
Well, look, I'm going to be really straight with you. Agency life sucks.
Yeah.
Agency life sucks. Agency life is the most heart wrenching, tiring, just over the top, unexcusably unreasonable
You can't just.
work environment that you will ever experience in your life. However, and this is a big however, I will take that over any day of sitting on a client side. I will take that over any day of sitting doing something else. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why. And that's why I have to be honest. It's not built for everybody.
Yep.
Um, the agency life is one where it has the advantage. It's very fast paced. Remember, you're an agent. You're a consultant for marketing. You're an agent of change. What you need to do is move faster than the market and faster than your clients.
Yep.
So imagine you have to move so fast, and especially today that consumers are moving so fast. You've got to move. You're always running. You're always running on the agency side.
Yep.
Um, Clients have unreasonable demands. Clients pay us to pay their problems away. We're basically paid to pay problems away. Nothing we do in the agency cannot. Everything we do in the agency could be done by a client. In theory, they could hire. You're seeing a lot of this trend of having internal agencies, and the pendulum always swings where clients take more work internally and then they outsource it. Usually, clients hire us because they don't want to deal with it and because they want diversity of ideas.
Yep.
And the only way you get diversity of idea is sometimes if you do it from the outside. Um, I would say it's something that everybody should. One of the biggest advantages I think you have in an agency is that you could spend 15 years working in an industry, or if you like work at Ford and you're going to know everything about car marketing, and that's great. And I mean, building a career in a place like Ford or Procter and Gamble or Unilever in the CPG business or Kellogg's. I mean, those are companies that, by the way, they offer you great career tracks, great growth, and great opportunities. However, um, they're very limiting in the diversity of industries. Whereas in an agency, you will work. I mean, I worked on Kellogg's. I have worked on Ford. I have worked on P&G. I have worked on wireless, AT&T. I have worked in the US. I have worked in globals. Now I'm working in Latin America. I worked in luxury with Hermes. I worked in Marriott. I mean, you basically do the gamut of industries. And cumulatively, I mean, in the process, it's very painful because Every time you go into a new client, you have to like learn a whole new way of thinking, a new way of learn, a new way of seeing marketing, marketing terminology, way of addressing marketing challenges. It's very different from the industries. I
You're
mean, clients are
onboarding each
different, but
time.
industry, right? Onboarding, but cumulatively, what you will find is, and that's why senior agency talent is so valuable, is you learn how to apply learnings from one industry to the other. That's the most value we bring as an agency. But client, I could speak to a client in one industry and give them a wealth of information on five other industries that might help them be better because every industry could learn from the other. Um, so I think agency life has its rewards. I think agency life has its rewards when you work for a big group where you could kind of pivot to different things. You could do data, you could do buying, you could do strategic planning, you could do creative, you could do content, you could do CRM. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. But some people rather be in a smaller agency because it gives you the opportunity to control everything for one client. Here in a bigger agency, you get to do one thing for a lot of big clients. And that's personal choice. That's nothing, there's no right or wrong there. That's something that I think everybody should try. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I love the agency. I wouldn't have done it for 20 years
Yeah.
if I didn't like it. But I have to tell you, you need to have the stomach for it because you do. Um, it's a little bit difficult.
Definitely not a 9 to 5, that's for sure.
Not
So
a 9 to 5. No, no,
not a,
no, no, no.
it interests me because I have a goal of staying in the agency for a little while longer. Definitely, I have only a year in agency world, and I can tell you that it has essentially kicked my butt for the past year. But it's amazing. It's so rewarding. I mean, I've come out of this year, and I've learned so much more than I think I would have learned anywhere else. I mean, I actually came from the client side. I've worked at places like Carnival. I worked at Pure One, and those kinds of experiences, you learn a lot because you grow in your position. The benefits, of, like you said, they're obviously amazing working for a corporate organization. However, you only learn that one kind of like niche environment, and corporate is so structured, like you said. So definitely, I agree 100% that it's not easy, but the journey that you take while you're there is so worth it because you're going to have transferable skills that can take you anywhere in the world. I mean, it's not just, even if you're working with just US, you can seriously take those kinds of experiences anywhere you go. I mean, agency life is so important, and I'm now realizing that. I mean, I've always wanted to work for an ad agency because Mad Men was my show growing up, but I like had this dream and I came in here and I knew it was going to be hard work, and like I definitely agree with you in terms of like having the stomach for it and the kind of value that brings. So I wanted to hear your perspective on it because obviously you trumple my experience by 100 times, but I want to learn from someone like you, and I'm sure the audience would like to learn from someone like you as well.
Yeah, and what I would say is just to add one more comment. I mean, the biggest advantage you have in an agency is you get to be much more creative.
Yep.
Agencies hire people to be disruptive. The most successful people in the agency are those who are most disruptive, not disruptive just to be a pain, but
Right.
disruptive in terms of bringing ideas. You
Innovation.
have to be ready for your people to tell you, sorry, this idea is horrible, and you need to be able to walk away from it. You
No,
can't think every idea you have is like you birthed a child and now this is the idea. You can't get attached to ideas because
you're gonna
that's
birth many
terrible.
children. Yep.
That's terrible. But I think what an agency gives you is they've been built around ideas.
Yep.
At least the agencies I've worked in, they're built around having ideas about being creative. And I think that's something that for some, it fuels them, and for some, it drains them. Some people don't want to be creative. They want to have a system that's already built and they want to just run the machine. In an agency, you're kind of building the machine, you're building the car as you're driving.
Yep.
And you're always making improvements. So um, that's something that's a little bit different dynamics, not right or wrong. I've had a lot of employees that at Publicis, people who have worked in our group who leave to go to client because they want that. They want something that's a little more stable, that's a little more, and I respect that. I've had people leave and come back because they are like, no, I tried it, but it wasn't for me. And I've had people leave and love it. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I spent 10 years in the agency. This client job is like the best gig I ever had because I'm working half, half what I used to. It's hard. One of the biggest things I would say with agency life is one of the hardest. tolls it'll take is on your family and your friends. And that's something you always should take into consideration, because long and that's in any profession where you're going to dedicate long hours to something. Always try to find that balance, and I think that's critical if you want to have a successful agency life. Because if your successful agency life means you have to give up on friends, give up on family, it might not be worth it at the end. You're going to have to make some compromises on both sides in order for it to work.
Well, Victor, I mean, that is amazing. Thank you for the additional comment. I mean, it's added so much value, and I think definitely I'm gonna look back at this interview and remember you as I grow in my career. So I appreciate you taking the time to let me interview you, let me ask you some questions, and kind of get to know you a little bit. And if you don't have any final comments, I mean, we can end it right here. I appreciate everything that you've done, and thank you.
No, no final comment. I mean, I guess my last comment is this for the students,
This
or
is
who's going to
for
read
this
this?
is for students. This is for entry-level marketing professionals.
Nice.
This is for business owners who don't really know how to market their own business. So they come to me for
Oh,
advice
perfect.
on how to market and how to really sell themselves.
Well, I would say two things. If you're new to the market, um, and I say this through the lens of what's been going on in terms of diversity and inclusion. A lot of, if you're here in South Florida, you know that we have a large multicultural audience, which is great. What I have experienced in the past by myself, or even by others who are part of, the diverse communities, is that sometimes we're quiet about our ideas. We're quiet about our ideas. We're a little quieter because we don't know if we have, I don't want to say the right, but if we have the if we could take agency in giving ideas and opinions. I noticed that a lot in talent, and it's more importantly, I notice it in diverse talent. And what I want to say to anybody who's starting is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give an opinion. Don't be afraid to have the unpopular opinion. And sometimes, in a lot of times, in if anything, there's many case studies on this. If somebody of a diverse background would have given the unpopular decisions, a lot of catastrophes would have been avoided for many brands. So I encourage you, if you're a new professional, if you are from a diverse background, if a lot of companies talk about diversity and talk about inclusion, and I know they're trying everything they can. But I think the most important thing, and the one thing I want you to walk away with, is don't be afraid to voice an unpopular opinion. Um, because I feel like sometimes, and I've been in that situation coming back, being a minority myself, I've come from that situation where sometimes, especially when I was working in Chicago, or places where there was even less diversity, a lot less diversity than here in South Florida, you'll come to realize that one of the biggest one of the things that held me back the most was my belief, almost like imposter syndrome,
Right.
that we have when we're minorities. And I would tell you, my last final thought is don't be afraid to have that opinion and voice it. And who cares if it makes people uncomfortable?
Yeah.
People are very quick to put you in your place if it's constructive. You shouldn't be afraid.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor.
Perfect.